Shalom Havrim, James Trim here, and today we're going to talk about the three Matzot in the Passover Seder and a very special mystery that they reveal to us, or that they express to us. But before we get started today, I want to ask everybody to please consider donating to support these videos, the blogs that we write and publish on the internet. All of this is free, paid for by you, and all of the research that we're doing to provide these very unique teachings and materials that frankly I don't think you can find anywhere else at this kind of depth and level. So we're going to talk today. Oh, one more thing, I need to ask you to please like this video. Our like ratio is super high. Likes to views through the roof compared to most podcasts. And we also want to ask you to please subscribe to this video. Get our subscriber numbers up. Click that little bell so you'll get notifications when new videos come out. And let us know what you think of our videos in the comments. Participate in the discussions in the comments. And all of this helps the YouTube algorithm decide to recommend our video to new viewers. And we want to be recommended to new viewers, which is why I'm also going to ask you to please share these videos on Facebook, on Twitter, on your various social media accounts. Share them with your friends, and that'll also bring in new viewers. All right, today we're going to talk about the Passover Seder. In the last video, we spoke about the mystery of the Yayin HaMeshumar and the Passover wine of the Passover Seder and its deep sod level significance. Today we're going to talk about the three Matzot and the deep spiritual significance to these. Now, in the Passover Seder, we have three Matzot that are kept in a linen pouch, and one of them is brought out. The pouch is called a Matzot. One of them is brought out. By the way, it's referred to a unity by the rabbis, which will become very important as we continue. During the Seder, the middle matzah, the middle one, is broken. And that broken portion is wrapped in linen and hidden away until the end of the Seder, when at the third cup of the 4 cups, it is brought out and eaten at the end of the meal in remembrance of the Passover lamb, and it's called the Afikomen. And we're going to get into the significance of that term as we continue. But the three matzahs recall the 3 measures of fine meal from which Sarah made 3 cakes for the 3 men who came to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre in Genesis chapter 18. Reading from Genesis chapter 18, verses 1 through 6. Oh, by the way, one more thing. 2 more things, actually. First of all, I asked you to donate, but I didn't tell you how. So you can donate by sending donations by PayPal to donations@wnae.org, or clicking on the donate link in the video description. There's also a link in the video description for a PDF file you can print out of handouts where you can follow along with this study. And so you may want to pause the video and download the PDF and print it out, or I just put it on another screen to save paper if you have a second screen or whatever. All right, so looking at our first page of our handout, quoting Genesis chapter 18, verses 1 through 6, And Yahweh appeared unto him by the oaks of Mamre. Now, one thing I have to tell you here is I'm reading Genesis 18, and this will come up later in our video. There are 136 places in the Masoretic text where the original Hebrew text had Yahweh, Yud-He-Vav-He. And the Masoretes and the scribes decided that this was somewhat confusing for some reason in these particular 136 passages, and so they decided to tikkun sopharim, the repairs of the scribes. They decided to fix the text and change Yahweh to Adonai in these 136 passages. Several of them are in chapter 18. And we have confirmation of this from some of the other manuscript sources that have come down to us besides the Masoretic text. But at any rate, I'm going to, the Masoretes wrote in the margin of the Masoretic text marginal notes that are called the Masorah, which include what are called the Tikkun Sopharim, the repairs of the scribes. And one of the things they record in these 136 places where they record that the original text actually had Yud-He-Vav-He, but the Masoretes and the scribes revised it to read Adonai. So beware, if you got a difference in reading between your text and the text that I'm reading you, I am reading with Yahweh in the places where it originally appeared, even if the Masoretic text has Adonai, but because the Masoretic text has a footnote or marginal note in the Masorah indicating that originally the reading was Yahweh. All right. Makes a big difference in chapters 18 and 19. And Yahweh appeared unto him by the oaks of Mamre as he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, three men stood over against him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed down to the earth and said, Yahweh, if now I have found favor in your sight, pass not away, I pray you, from your servant. Let now a little water be fetched, and wash your feet, and recline yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and stay your heart. After that you shall pass on, for as much as you are come to your servant. And they said, So do, as you have said. And Abraham hastened unto the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes. Now, the Hebrew word for cakes here is egot, which is plural for egah. And the Greek translators used a very interesting Greek word in the Greek Septuagint to translate this word. They used I'm not a Greek expert, egkrufius. The typical word for a cake is egkrus, and the word ekrufius seems to merge this word with the Greek word krufius, meaning hidden, secret, or concealed. Or we might say in Hebrew, sewed. It may be that egkrus is fried bread, while ekrufius is baked by covering it with a cover, like in a Dutch oven, which is covered with hot coals. Maybe. But we turn to the next page of our handout, Philo of Alexandria. Let's see what Philo says. Now remember, Philo of Alexandria lived in the Second Temple era during the same time period as Yeshua. But he lived, like I said, he was Jewish, but he lived in Alexandria, Egypt, and he was Greek speaking. And his Bible was the Septuagint. Just like an English speaking Jew, their Bible might be the JPS edition, okay? So he writes in his book on the birth of Abel, sections 59 through 60, He says, "Now it is very good that these three measures should, as it were, be kneaded together in the soul and mixed up together, in order that so the soul, being persuaded that the Supreme Being is God, who has raised his head above all his powers, and who is beheld independently of them, and who makes himself visible in them, may receive the character of his power and beneficence, and becoming initiated into the perfect mysteries sowed, may not be too ready to divulge the divine secrets to anyone, but may treasure them up in herself, and keeping a check over her speech, may conceal them in silence, for the words of the scripture to make secret cakes." Egg Crufius, Genesis 18:6. Because the sacred and mystic statements about the one uncreated being and about his powers ought to be kept secret, since it does not belong to everyone to keep the deposits of divine mysteries properly. So Philo of Alexandria is telling us that this Greek word, the Greek translator used the word egkrufius to key us in that there was some secret mystical knowledge about the divine mysteries that was concealed in the fact that she was making these three secret cakes. Now, in the same book, in sections 61 and 62, Philo of Alexandria goes on to tie these three measures for these three cakes in with the cakes of unleavened bread eaten at Passover. He writes, "For the stream of intemperate soul flowing outwards through the mouth and tongue is pumped up and poured into all ears, some of which, having wide channels, keep that which is poured into them with all cheerfulness, but others, through the narrowness of the passages, are unable to be bedewed by it, but that which overflows, being poured forth in an unrestrained manner, is scattered in every direction, so that what has been concealed escapes and floats on the top of it, and like a random torrent of mud, bears along with its in its flood things worthy of being tended with all care. In reference to which those persons appear to me have come to a right decision, who have been initiated in the lesser mysteries before learning anything of these greater ones. For they baked their flour which they brought out of Egypt, baking secret cakes, egkrufius, of unleavened bread. That is to say, they dealt with the untamed and savage passions, softening them with reason, so that they would knead bread, for they did not divulge the manner of their kneading and improving it, as it was derived from some divine system of preparation, but they treasured it up in their secret stores, not being elated at the knowledge of the mystery, but yielding and being lowly as to their boasting." So Philo is telling us that these three cakes, these three secret cakes that Sarah made, these three secret cakes, egkrufius, that Sarah made, which the Greek translator of the Septuagint interpreted as being egkrufius, or secret cakes, was conveying the idea that there was some mystery associated with these three measures of flour and these three cakes that Sarah made for these three visitors that visited Avraham, these three men that visited Avraham. And Philo also tells us that this egkrufius, these secret cakes, is identifiable with the matzah, the unleavened bread that we eat at Passover, i.e. the three Matzot that we have in a pouch together in a unity at the Passover Seder are some special mystery concerning Elohim, according to Philo of Alexandria. And it's also tied to the three men that visited Avraham. So let's turn to our next handout and let's see what the Zohar says about these three men. The Zohar says, who were the three men? This is volume 1, page 98b of the Zohar. Who were the three men? And then it says, it gives the answer, they are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, let's think here for a minute. Let's think to the story in Genesis 18. Abraham entertains three men that come see him, who are, by the way, called Yahweh. We saw that, and we'll see more of that in this. And the Zohar is telling us that the three men that visited Avraham were Avraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Well, that doesn't make any sense. First of all, Yitzhak and Yaakov haven't been born yet. I don't think Yitzhak and Yaakov, they're not on the scene. And I don't think Yitzhak hasn't been born yet, because this is the event where Sarah finds out she's pregnant with Yitzhak. So Yitzhak and Isaac and Yitzhak and Yaakov haven't been born yet, and Avraham isn't visiting Avraham. So what can this possibly mean? Well, to the student of the Zohar, we recognize and understand that Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov represent the three pillars and three of the Sephirot, which are associated with each of the three pillars in the Etz Chaim. So if we look at the Bahir, section 137, it says, through the merit of Avraham, who was worthy of the attribute of kindness, or chesed, Isaac was worthy of the attribute of terror, or fear, respect, pachad. Yaakov was worthy of the attribute of truth, which is the attribute of peace. Peace, or shalom, because it brings together the two outer pillars, reconciles chesed and pachad. Pachad is sometimes the sephira of Gevarah, severity, is sometimes called pachad. And if we look at Bahir, section 190, we read, Avraham was worthy and took kindness, or chesed, as his attribute, as it is written, kindness to Avraham, Micah 7:20. Isaac was worthy and took the attribute of strength, Gevarah, which is called terror, or fear, pachad. It is thus written, and Yaakov swore by terror of Isaac his father, Genesis 31:53. Avraham is above and Isaac is below him. You will be in the center and take all thee. What is the center? It is shalom, it is peace. As it is written, you give truth to Yaakov, Micah 7:20. Truth is essential with shalom, or peace, as it is written, words of shalom, words of peace and truth, emet. Esther 9:30. It is also written, for peace and truth will be in my days. 2 Kings 20:19. So kindness, truth and peace, and strength/terror are terms commonly used to refer to these three pillars of the Godhead, or the three Sephirot, which characterize at least the center of the three pillars. As I mentioned, throughout the chapter, the scribes altered several occurrences of Yahweh, or Adonai, in verses 3, 22, 27, 30, 31, and 32 to Adonai. There's 6 of the 134 places in the whole Tanakh where this happened are right here in chapter 18. The point that I'm making is that the three men then represented, when the Zohar tells us that they were Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, it doesn't mean that they were literally Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It means that they represented Chesed, Gevorah, and Tiferet, which are the three pillars of the Godhead, or represent each of the three pillars of the Godhead, because they're the center sephirot of each of the three pillars, with Tiferet at the center being commonly associated with what the Zohar calls the Son of Yah, and the middle pillar being the Son of Yah. And we're going to get into this somewhat here, but we get into this so much more in a video we did, a pair of videos we did on the three pillars. And I will put links to those two videos in the comments. Okay. So Philo says of these three men in on Abraham, sections 121 through 122. And I say 121b because we start in the middle of 121 and then we go through halfway through 122. I mean, those that have assigned sections, I don't think assigned them really well to divide this up. But that's where we're at. So it says, the one in the middle, talking about these three men that visited Avraham, is the father of the universe, who in the sacred scriptures is called by his proper name, I am that I am. And the beings on each side are those most ancient powers which are always close to the living God, one of which is called his creative power, and the other is his royal power. And the creative power is God, for it is by this that he made and arranged the universe. And the royal power is the Lord, for it is fitting that the Creator should lord it over and govern the creature. Therefore, the middle person of the three, being attended by each of his powers, as by bodyguards, presents to the mind, which is endowed with the faculty of sight, a vision at one time of one being, and of another time of the three. That's a very interesting description. And then in section 206 of the same book on Avraham, he says, for this reason it seems to me to have been that Sarah, in Genesis 18:15, the namesake of virtue, who had previously laughed, denied her laughter to the person who questioned her as to the cause of it, fearing lest she might be deprived of her rejoicing as belonging to no created being but to God alone, on which account the holy word, the word there in Greek is logos, which is a word Philo used to refer to the word, the memra in the Targums and the milah in the Zohar, milta in the Peshitta Aramaic New Testament. So, on which account the holy word, devar in Hebrew by the way, encouraged her and said, be not afraid, you have laughed a genuine laugh, and you have a share in real joy. So one of these beings is, maybe the culmination of them, is called the Word. This is Philo of Alexandria, a Second Temple era Jew, who is writing this. Okay, now let's go back to the Zohar. Let's not forget that Philo has told us that these three men, which he has described as being three aspects of Elohim, with one of them being the Logos or the Word, that these three men are symbolized by the three measures of flour for three cakes that Sarah made for each of them, and that these three cakes are called krios, secret cakes in the Greek translation,
because the Greek translator knew that they had some secret to them, that there was a mystical thing here, a secret hidden teaching here. And then Philo tells us that it's tied to the Passover matzah that we eat. And let's not forget that at Passover we take 3 matzot and we put them together in a pouch as a unity. And so this whole study is about what is this special mystery. And remember, one of these is representing then, from Philo, the Word. And we're taking one of these, and at the beginning of the Seder, we break it, and we take the half of it, and we wrap it in linen until it is brought back out at the end of the Seder. Well, we'll get back to that in a minute. Let's see what the Zohar says about these 3 pillars. And like I said, I'm just touching on this right now. There is a much better video on the 3 pillars as treated in the rabbinic sources like the Zohar, and a second video that covers Philo of Alexandria on the same topic. And I'll put the links in this video. All right. Reading for the Zohar. Then Elohim said, "Let there be light." And there was light, and Elohim saw that the light was good. Why, it may be asked, was it necessary to repeat the word light in this verse? It's repeated 3 times. The answer is that the first light refers to the primordial light, which is of the right hand and is destined for the end of days, while the second light refers to the left hand, which issues from the right. The next words, "and God saw the light that it was good," Genesis 1:4, refer to the pillar which, standing midway between them, unites both sides, and therefore when the unity of the 3, right, left, and middle, was complete, it was good, since there could be no completion until the 3rd had appeared to remove the strife between the right and the left, as it is written, "And God separated between the light and between the darkness." This is the middle pillar, ki tov, that which is good, through light above and below, and on all other sides, in virtue of Yahweh, the name which embraces all sides. So the 3 matzah are placed together to show their unity, as we read in the Zohar, the 3 pillars of the Godhead. In the last passage I just read you, which was in our handouts, by the way, was Zohar Volume 1, page 16b, and we're about to read from Volume 2, page 43. The profession of the unity, that every day is a profession of unity, talking about reciting the Shema, is to be understood and to be perceived. We have said in many places that this prayer is a profession of unity that is proclaimed, "Hear, O Yahweh," first, then Eloheinu and Yahweh. They are all one, and thus he is called one. In other words, when we say Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, traditionally, or Adonai Yahweh, Adonai Eloheinu, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, which is what it actually says in Deuteronomy 6:4, that we are actually saying that Yahweh, Eloheinu, and Yahweh are Echad. Eloheinu then being the middle matzah. "Behold, these are 3 names. How can they be one?" Continuing to read here from the Zohar. "Is it because we call them one?" Or literally, also concerning the proclamation that we call them one? How these are one can only be through the vision of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, be known. Or how these are one can only through the vision of the Ruach HaKodesh be known. And these are through the vision of the closed eye, or the hidden eye, to make known that these 3 are one. And this is the mystery of the voice that is heard. The voice is one and is 3 ga'unin, fire, and air and water, and all these are one in the mystery of the voice. In other words, when we speak, there are three elements, like the ancient four elements. There are three of those elements: fire, air, and water in our voice, because our breath is hot, like fire. It's air, obviously, and moist, like water. So it brings together three into one. Okay. By the way, in the Three Pillars video, we go into the Sefer Yitzhak, that this is actually portion this is actually referring to, and how it's built up from the Sefer Yitzhak. And also here, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, these three are one. Three Gahunin. Gahunin is a Aramaic word that literally means colors, but it can also mean elements, characteristics, attributes. And this is the voice of the act of a Son of Man in proclaiming the unity, and to which he sees by the unity of the all from Ein Sof, or the infinite one, to the end of the all, because the voice in which it is done, and these are three that are one. There's sort of a word play here between, there's a word play here between voice and all, kol and kol. This is the profession of the daily profession of the unity that is revealed in the mystery of the Holy Spirit, of the Ruach HaKodesh. There are many Gaonim, there are unity, and all of them are true. What the one does, the other does, and what that one does, the other does. Okay. So this is the deep mystery of the unity of the three Matzot. All right, Genesis 18 then concludes, going back to Genesis 18 again, and Yahweh went his way as soon as he had left off speaking to Avraham, and Avraham returned unto his place. And then the next chapter begins with, and the two angels, or messengers, came to Sodom at evening, and Lot said in the gate of Sodom, and Lot saw them and rose up to meet them, and he fell down on his face to the earth. Now, why are there two angels? Because one of the three men that were called Yahweh in the previous chapter went his way, while the other two came to Sodom. As the Zohar comments to this passage in Volume 1, page 106a through 106b, it's the last part of 106a and onto the first part of 106b, Rabbi Yosef pointed that the preceding verse, and the Lord went his way as soon as he had left off speaking with Avraham, indicates that only when the Shekinah departed from Avraham and Avraham returned to his place did the two angels come to Sodom at evening. It says two because one of the angels departed in the Shekinah, leaving only two. All right, in verse 18, Lot then addresses these two angels as Yahweh. Once again, the scribes have altered the passage to read Adonai, but the original, according to the notes in the Masoretic text, the Masorah, read Yahweh. Okay. Let's turn to our next handout, titled The Talmud at the top. It says, it's worth noting that according to the Talmud in Sanhedrin 38b, a certain mean used this very passage in debating the deity of Messiah with Rabbi Ishmael ben Yosef. Someday we'll do a whole study on Sanhedrin 38b and the back and forth that takes place in that chapter between rabbinic Jews and the Menim, who in this chapter at least, I believe, were Nazarenes. So who were the Menim? Well, Jerome, in his letter 75 to Augustine, he writes concerning the Nazarenes and Ebionites. He says, what shall I say of the Ebionites who pretend to be Christians? Today there still exists among the Jews in the synagogues of the East a heresy which is called that of the Manians, of which is still condemned by the Pharisees. Its followers are all ordinarily called Nazarenes. They believe that Christ, the Son of God, was born of the Virgin Mary, and they hold him to be the one who suffered under Pontius Pilate and ascended to heaven, and in whom we also believe. Now, according to Jastro's Dictionary of the Targumim, Talmud, Bavli, Yerushalmi, and Midrashic Literature by Marcus Jastrow. I actually have it on my desk right here at the moment. Very handy book. According to his translation, he translates mean a sectarian infidel, a Jewish infidel, mostly applied to Jew Christians. Now, I think he uses the word Jew Christians to refer to Ebionites and Nazarenes, although those groups did not call or consider themselves Christians, and Nazarenes today, we do not consider ourselves Christians. But he's using some academic terminology that I don't believe is accurate, but which academia use. Okay. Many scholars believe then that the term mean, by the way, is an acronym for a Hebrew phrase meaning believers in Yeshua the Nazarene. All right. So what we get from all of that is that there's evidence that the original Jewish Nazarene followers of Yeshua used these very passages that we're talking about to argue for the deity of Messiah. Okay, Irenaeus, the second century Christian, he writes, interestingly, in Against Heresies, Book 3, Chapter 6, Section 1, and again referring to the destruction of the Sodomites, the scripture says, "And the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah fire and brimstone from the Lord out of heaven." For it here points out that the Son, who had also been talking with Abraham, had received power to judge the Sodomites from their wickedness. By the way, the Targum Onkelos also interprets this passage. I thought I had that in the notes here, and maybe somehow I didn't get it in. But Targum Onkelos in Genesis 19:24 has the word of Yahweh brought down fire and brimstone from Yahweh in the heavens, indicating that one of these was the Memra, or the word. Okay. Our last handout is titled Conclusion. So here we're finally going to bring it all together. When we examine the Zohar, the Targum, the Talmud, Philo of Alexandria, and even Irenaeus on this portion of Torah, it becomes clear that the three men that visit Abraham represent the three pillars of the Godhead. One of them returns to heaven at the end of chapter 18, leaving two angels in chapter 19, which are also called Yahweh, and which cause fire and brimstone to rain out from Yahweh, which is returned to heaven. The Greek translator of the Septuagint and Philo knew that the unleavened cakes of Exodus 12:39 and the cakes of Genesis 18:6, which Sarah made for each of the three men, contained a mystery, or represented a mystery. And it was this mystery of the three pillars of the Godhead and the three matzah of the Passover Seder that Yeshua referenced on the night of his betrayal, when he took the bread and he blessed it and he broke it and he gave it to his Talmudim, saying, this was the afikomen, the middle matzah. He said, "Take you and eat this, which is my body, which is broken for your sakes. Thus do for my memorial." This he broke into pieces and he passed around to be eaten as the afikomen. Now, In the days of the destruction of the temple, when the Passover lamb was still offered, a piece of the Passover lamb had to be the last thing eaten in the meal, according to Mishnah Pesachim, chapter 10, Mishnah 8. So that one was left with the taste of the Passover lamb in their mouth, according to the Babylonian Talmud, Pesachim, page 119b. Since the destruction of the temple, the broken middle matzah represents the Passover lamb and becomes the afikomen. The word afikomen in Greek means last thing eaten, but in Aramaic it means my presence has been raised up. Okay, so before we conclude, hopefully you have a great deep now understanding of the reason why we have the 3 matzah in the Passover Seder, why the middle matzah is broken and is wrapped in linen, and it is brought up at the end of the Seder and eaten as the afikomen, and how these 3 matzot represent the 3 pillars. All right, I'm going to go ahead and remind everybody, please, to donate to support these very unique, in-depth videos, and you can do that by clicking on the donate link in the video description. We depend upon you and you alone to make these videos possible. These videos are brought to you by you, people like you. All right, please like this video, please subscribe to our channel, click the notifications bell, let us know what you think in the video description, let us know what you think in the comments, and yes, you can donate by clicking on the donate link in the video description, or by sending your donations by PayPal to donations@WNADE.org. Don't forget to share these videos with your friends and on social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc. Shalom, everybody. Until next time.